After making a big impact in the Chicago Bears' second preseason game, Austin Booker has now talked about what his mindset was going into that game. We're also talking about him and other players that really stood out in the Chicago Bears preseason game and why it may be time for Bears fans to get excited. All that plus a little of the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm one of the hosts here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So I think one of the things that's not deniable, right? While we have, people questioning how good Caleb Williams actually was or not, and we'll get into that a little bit. One thing that is non-deniable about making an impact in Saturday's preseason game was Austin Booker. 5 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, and 3 QB hits. Austin Booker absolutely turned heads in the way that he performed, and he could very well be the latest steal by Ryan Poles in last year's draft. After it, he said this: "It was a great feeling, a rush of energy, and I can't wait to do it again. I've just got to watch the film to see how I can improve. There's always stuff I could have done better and probably could have had 2 more sacks." I get it. It's easy to say the right things, especially in sports. Now, make no mistake about it. But when you pair how Austin Booker played, even in that the Hall of Fame game, Austin Booker only had 1 tackle. But if you look at the way he was able to put pressure on the Houston Texans offensive line and putting pressure on the quarterback there, you cannot deny that Austin Booker has turned a lot of heads, rightfully so far, with this preseason play. He was already looked at as a potential steal in last year's draft with the upside that he provided. You look at how he's already made an impact through 2 preseason games, and even though Dominique Robinson is still ahead of him on the depth chart, did start ahead of Austin Booker, you got to start questioning how much longer is that going to be the case. Austin Booker made a huge impact, and he continues to improve. And even though there are some concerns about his size at the NFL level right now, we know he's going to put on some weight over his first couple of seasons in the NFL, you can't deny the way that the skill level that's there already for him. And keep in mind, this is a guy who, one of the reasons he failed like he did in the draft was because of the unproven talent, how raw he is. And he's already showing a level of refinement that, to me, already puts him ahead of a player like Dominique Robinson, even though Dominique Robinson is going into his 3rd year in the NFL. And so it's a question on how much longer is Austin Booker going to be back on that depth chart. And I still do think there is a chance that Austin Booker could win this defensive end position by the start of the season. Now, more than likely, that's not going to be the case. I want to be clear here. I'm not going to say that that's the likely scenario, but it is a possible scenario. And there's another one that he ends up being the starting edge by the end of the season. We know that the Bears had some questions on the edge other than Montez Sweat, right? Even though DeMarcus Walker is a solid player, he's typically been more productive on the interior defensive line. But one of the things that makes him special is the ability to go inside and out on the edge, right? We knew that. Jacob Martin, while having an impressive, training camp period, he's a vet, and you like what he's showing you there. Make no mistake about it. But again, he doesn't have nearly the upside of Austin Booker. We've already talked about Dominique Robinson. You can throw in Khalid Kareem to that as well. Like, Austin Booker has a chance here. And Montez Sweat already noticing the talent of Austin Booker. Now, I do think that there's a high probability they're not going to want to throw him out there as a starter right away. But we know this. One thing that has been true about the Chicago Bears team since Matt Eberflus took over as the head coach is that it's not about where you're drafted at per se. It's about the talent and what you bring and if you can up and play at a starting level mentality. And Austin Booker has that. And so going over the last 2 preseason games just to keep watching out to see what Austin Booker continues to bring for this Bears team is going to be important to watch. And like I said, I don't like hyperbole. Is there a little bit in this? Possibly, right? And make no mistake about it. This is still preseason production, so you take it all with a grain of salt. But again, like I always say with preseason, it's about the process, not necessarily just the results. Some results you have to take a look at as well, and you can't deny certain results. Like, you just can't deny certain ones. But at the end of the day, like, Austin Booker, 6'6", 245 pounds, the combination of speed and strength that he brings, bringing the bull rush as well as a rookie that's supposed to be raw on your team, man, there's a lot of things that he's showing right now that could give him an opportunity to end up making or being a starter for this. Not a question he's going to make the team, but being a starter for the Chicago Bears. Him and Daniel Hardy as well, both showed a lot, for this Bears team in the last game. And so we just got to continue to watch it, continue to monitor it. And, considering how, like I said, Dominique Robinson has been here, we kind of know what he's going to be, even though he's changed his body as well. You got to start asking your questions. Like, is Dominique Robinson possibly looking behind him and wondering, hey, do I need to start worrying about my spot? You may be. You may have to start worrying about if you're even going to make this team as well. Now, the Chicago Bears, they have joint practices this week with Cincinnati, which is a really good thing there. We know that they have the game on Saturday against Cincinnati, but they're going to host joint practices, so that's going to be a really good thing also to watch and break down to see how that Bears offensive line stands up. But we'll get into that in a minute. But overall, I just wanted to spend some time talking about Austin Booker because this is a guy to definitely keep your eyes on. And we'll see what the story ends up unfolding, how it unfolds for Austin Booker. Now, moving on from that, though, let's get into the players that are kind of whose stock is up after the Bears' second preseason game, after a win over the Buffalo Bills. And we got to start off with Caleb Williams. Now, the 108 yards total from scrimmage on 2 drives is great production. And people who want to deny that or throw that, it's always funny to see how you get some people that just literally pop up for negativity, whatever it is, right? They pop up for negativity. Caleb Williams didn't play a perfect game. He had that the one bad throw that I would categorize, which was almost an interception. Shout out to Rome Odunze for basically turning into a cornerback to swat that ball down. But Caleb Williams going 4 of 7, 95 yards, right? A QB rating of 101. Again, this is against a preseason defense, so take from it the process, not necessarily just the result. But he showed a little bit of everything. The mid-game. Taking a big shot down the field, right? The poise that he had, even with the pocket starting to collapse, and how he used his leg to extend the plays, right? That's one thing different. But Bears, we've seen quarterbacks have solid preseason games before, right? Mitch Trubisky had a solid preseason game. Mitch, it was a little bit different. He didn't look like he was as in control, but that's the thing as well that makes this special. Caleb Williams felt like he was in control and in command of that offense during the time that he was on the field. Having the presence of mind as well slide on that 13-yard play that broke down when he took the ball off and ran for it. I would have liked to see, of course, some touchdowns. That is what it is. Not saying that by any stretch it was a perfect night for Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams did did some in that game for all the things that we've heard that Caleb Williams' strengths are. He played a really big part into it as well, like reading the defense, right? He showed just about everything from a type of preseason debut that it was. He really showed what it is, the snaps, all those type of things. Caleb Williams was a playmaker on Saturday, and that's exactly what you wanted to see. And the way that he made plays, the quick decisions, the passes on top of that, scrambling when he needs to, right, to get the ball down the field. I think the best play was that 26-yard pass to Cole Kmet, where he rolled out of the pocket, threw a really good pass to the sideline on top of that. So it was overall really good from Caleb Williams that he did what he wanted to do. He made plays with his arm. He made plays with his leg. He moved the chains down the field. Caleb Williams, for people who has questions or whatever about Caleb, he did something in that game. Now, we got to see it go into the regular season, right? And so for a quarterback, there's always going to be that thing in the back of fans' minds, rightfully so, over, okay, how much of this, though, is going to translate to real live games in the NFL when somebody's coming for your head top, right? And so that is going to be a question there. But overall, Caleb Williams showed a lot of what could make Caleb Williams special in the NFL level if he can continue to do stuff like that at a bigger level against the actual starters in the NFL. Yeah, it's going to be a fun season to watch for Caleb Williams. But right along with Caleb Williams, I got to give props to the O-line. The starting O-line yesterday of Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Matt Pryor, Darnell Wright, they looked really good. It was way more good than what you can take away from bad from that offensive line. You look at Coleman Shelton being the center, right, and being the first player to snap the ball to Caleb Williams. There's something there. And Coleman Shelton always had the more experience than Ryan Bates at the center position. And I like to think that Coleman Shelton may have the inside edge. Whilst the Bears really kind of hoped that Ryan Bates, it seemed like, was going to be that starting center. With the injuries to Nate Davis and things like that, things have changed. But to me, Coleman Shelton showed a lot. He has more experience at that center position, like I said. And he looked really good, and that chemistry between him and Caleb looked pretty good. And then Matt Pryor as well. Like, Matt Pryor, what we heard Matt Eberflus talk about, right? If you're out with the injury and somebody steps into your position and they're playing at a starter level, listen, they could take your spot. And Matt Pryor may very well be ready to take Nate Davis' spot. We'll see what happens overall with that, but he could be. Coleman Shelton, like I said, looks like a solid starting center to me. I feel like he may have that inside edge to be that starting center there. And Matt Pryor, listen, he played really good to me. But outside of that, Tevin Jenkins, we got the Tevin Jenkins we expected, the Darnell Wright that we expected. Braxton Jones was looking good out there as well. I got limited snaps, but overall, the concerns about that offensive line doesn't look like it should be very much of a concern. It looked good out there. Good. Now, it's preseason, so you take that for what you will, but there was always that thought that we talked about of, all right, is the struggles that we're hearing from the offensive line in training camp just due to how good the Chicago Bears defensive line is, or is it that they're just not that good, right? And it seems like it's that our defensive line may be some dogs. I mean, talk about the defensive line getting 8 sacks, well, the defense overall getting 8 sacks in the game against the Bills. But so overall, the Bears offensive line, it showed more than what I was expecting. I got to give them credit for that. Got to give them huge credit for that. And then outside of that as well, I already talked about Coleman Shelton. Khalil Herbert played more snaps with Caleb Williams than even DeAndre Swift did. Now, there's a possibility that, because they are sure, they know DeAndre Swift's going to be their starting running back. He played 2 snaps with Caleb, I believe. They didn't play him a lot, and they're trying to figure out what that balance at the running back position is going to be. But Khalil Herbert, seeing more reps with Caleb Williams, looked pretty damn good in those reps as well, as we know Khalil Herbert can do. He had 9 carries for 31 yards, an average of 3.4 yards per carry in that time, a long run of 14 yards. So Khalil Herbert continues to play well and continues to, those things that we heard at the start of training camp that, he could be moved. That one came from Courtney Cronin and things like that. There's a high probability that maybe those things aren't going to be as big of a concern as what maybe that we thought. And, the running back room overall, it's something to take away from that running back room. Khalil Herbert, Roschon, DeAndre Swift, and then the next young man that I'm going to mention, Ian Willer. 5 carries for 43 yards, had a long one of 21 yards, 2 touchdowns he had in that time. Ian Willer, I think, was always a long shot to make that 53-man roster, and I want to be clear, probably still a long shot to make that 53-man roster, but he's starting to show some things that could keep him around. Now, the question that the Bears have to ask themselves is that if you put him on the practice squad, how long would it take before a team comes and snatches him up for you? So that's something as well that the Bears have to consider if they do or if they are thinking about keeping him. The 5 carries, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns, it really good production from him. You add into that how he can be a return specialist as well. And so I get it. The Bears tried Velus Jones out there at the running back. He even scored a touchdown, so shout out to Velus there. But to me right now, Ian Willer may be somebody that we have to look at and say maybe he goes ahead of Velus. He's extremely younger, 5 years younger than Velus Jones on top of that. He can be used as well in the passing game. He's not a wide receiver like Velus initially was, but Ian Willer has that opportunity to be that as well. And so a crowded backfield may keep him from making it. You got to look at DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon, Travis Homer. But at that point, it's a battle between Velus Jones and Ian Willer. And so, I doubt the Bears are going to carry 5 running backs unless you also got to throw in Kari Blasingame as the fullback there too, right? So Ian Willer's going to have an uphill battle to make the 53-man roster, but he didn't do anything to hurt his chances of making the 53-man roster, in my opinion, either in yesterday's game. So we'll see what happens there. But Ian Willer is a name to keep a lookout for. Would not be surprised if the Bears, play him over the next 2 preseason games as well. He's going to get a lot of opportunities and snaps in the second halves of those games and things like that to see what they have in him. But Ian Willer has a lot of potential at being only 22 years old, and I think that he's a guy that I would love to see stick around here in Chicago. But he has to continue to bring it and prove it. And that's in practice, that's in preseason games, that's in everything from now until the end of training camp. He has to bring it every single game because that avenue for him to make the final 53-man roster is not a large one. So he's going to have a margin for error in that, but we got to ultimately see what comes of that. But outside of that, guys, even when you look at the defense overall, like I said, that defensive performance, getting 8 sacks in a preseason game, but it was really good seeing the pressure that we were able to put on quarterbacks and all those type of things. 11 QB hits, 8 sacks and 11 QB hits. Hey, that's really good as well. We had 6 passes deflected on top of that. The defense has started to shine. Now, we didn't see the glowing moments that some Bears fans are looking for from Javon Dexter, especially considering the hype we've heard around him. But other than that, man, it was a really solid performance. Micah Baskerville is another guy I probably should have put on this list of guys who have really, their stock is up after that pick six, and he's been performing well. Is also not been hugely bad out there or anything like that. Reddy Stewart had a big game for the Bears, also another undrafted free agent. We got some guys here, man. It's not going to be as clear-cut as what it's been in some other off seasons as who makes that final 53-man roster. There are going to be a couple of players here that are cut that we may end up looking back on and saying, damn, we cut that guy. That's something Ryan Poles and this coaching staff, that's up to them to decide, man. But with that said, before we go, I did want to get into one of the voicemails. Of course, after games, the voicemail bag gets filled up pretty regularly. This one's from Damien.
What up, what up, what up? It's Dugan from South Carolina, man. I'm calling to get my input on the preseason game. Man, I'm very, very impressed, man. You know, Caleb Williams played a clean game. You know, I ain't big on Caleb Williams like you. I think he's a good quarterback, far from generational. He's not a generational quarterback to me, but he played a good game, and he got the opportunity to be a superstar in this league, man. Clean game. Game went too big for him. I was very impressed. You know, only one bad throw. That the pass on the sideline, what they call a penalty. It could have been an interception, but man, you know, I kind of blame a doomsday on that instead of Caleb though. But anyway, man, he played a good game. Like y'all, I don't want to get ahead of myself because if y'all remember, Justin Fields played a good game. Played a good game in his preseason game too. He threw the 69 pass to Herbert, took it off. So ain't no get too big, but he played good, man. It's a good defense. My biggest take is defense. Man, that defense ready. They look good. Man, just happy, man. I was like, I can't think of his name. Your co-host said, I ain't no buy no Caleb Williams jersey to next year, man. That was fun. That was on the money, but I really like that. Chicago up, bear down, aka I believe in Monk.
I agree on the one bad pass from Caleb. I fully agree with you there. I'm not going to even knock that one. Deny that one. He had it was a bad pass. And I agree with you as well. We've seen some quarterbacks come here. Justin Fields, Mitch had some good preseason. So, you know, and that's why I always say it's the process, not necessarily just the result, right? You want to start seeing how these quarterbacks process it in. When you get into that, that's where it's different. The poise that Caleb Williams had is different from Mitch because Mitch was just kind of out there powering through. And, you know, Justin did show some poise in some preseason games as well. I don't want to take that away from Justin. But Caleb, you know, it's up to him to show that it's different. It's up to him to show that it's not just preseason performance. He's going to have to find a way to bring it in the NFL for real games, for the Chicago Bears team, for people to believe it. It's always going to be a level of pessimism from Bears fans because guess what? We've seen the fool's gold before. So we want to make sure that we have the right thing. And so that's going to be something that it's up to Caleb Williams and this offense to prove as well. And something I should have mentioned as well. Listen, Shane Waldron seems like it's going to be a fun offensive play calling season watching Shane Waldron do his thing. But as far as the way you ended that on the defense is going to be legit, man. I completely believe that this is going to be a defense where we look at it and we say we have a playoff caliber defense, a defense that could definitely push the Chicago Bears to those heights almost single-handedly, right? So we have a lot of talent on this team, and I don't want to take away from that. Like, this defense seems really good. And so, you know, I out of that first preseason game, I had some questions about the depth pieces, how they performed in that first preseason game, but they very much so stepped up in major ways in that second preseason game. So there's a lot of positive to take away. There's a lot of excitement right now, rightfully so, around the Bears, and there's a level of expectation that this Bears team has internally. I'm not talking about what the national media or even Bears fans have. I'm talking about the way that this Bears team performs and practices. There's a level of expectation. They hold themselves to being one of the top defenses in the NFL this coming year, and so you better see that performance because that's what these guys want to see from themselves. And holding each other accountable to that, that's where you start getting into the special defenses that the Bears have had. So let's hope that we have the makings of getting back to being the monsters of the Midway sooner rather than later. But Damien, thank you for leaving that voicemail, guys. You guys can follow the channel at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearscentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. That's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.